After declaring war on Japan, the United States began to fight in the Pacific. The Japanese were already controlling most Oceania area from the Kuril Islands to New Guinea. They had a strong foothold in the Pacific. The only way that the United States was able to gain control was to island hop. This meant that the Americans would go from island to island in order to get to Japan. The U.S. fleet was very small, and so the Japanese attacked the Americans at Midway. When the Japanese arrived at Midway, they realized that the Americans had more ships than they thought. The Americans rebuilt a majority of their fleet in a matter of months. This was the beginning of the fall of the Japanese Empire. The Battle of Iwo Jima was a very crucial battle in the Pacific. The island had multiple airfields on it that the Americans needed to take. With its airfields and its close proximity to the Japanese mainland, it was a perfect spot to send B-29 bombers from. The small volcanic island of Iwo Jima had a great fortification and defense setup built by the Japanese. With the tunnels and bunkers, the Japanese were a hard enemy to fight. 3 U.S. Marine divisions invaded Iwo Jima on February 19, 1945. The attack was extremely difficult for the Marines because of the Japanese positioning and machine gun fire. For days the Marines tried to push up the beaches and gain a foothold on the island, and on February 23, 1945, the Marines took over Mount Suribachi. An American flag was raised on the volcano. The flag was too small to many of the soldiers, so a larger flag was raised, and the famous photo by Joe Rosenthal was taken and sent back to the U.S. The Marine morale was raised, even though they were losing at that point. The Marines began to win their battles thanks to their extreme moral strength. They remained mentally strong even despite their late-night banzai attacks the Japanese executed. The Americans pushed forward on the island, and after almost a month of fighting, on March 16, 1945, the island of Iwo Jima was confirmed as under American control. Nearly 7,000 Americans were killed and nearly 20,000 were wounded. 216 Japanese soldiers were captured, and all others were confirmed as KIA, killed in action. The island serves as a military airfield where many B-29 bombers made emergency landings, and nearly 24,000 airmen were saved. The Battle of Iwo Jima was a very important part of the World War II. The battle was an important fight over a key position in the Pacific. The United States gained an immense morale boost from the victory on Iwo Jima. The island was important because of its airfields that helped American pilots. The battle had a positive effect for the Allies. The Americans were able to soon defeat the Japanese after the Battle of Iwo Jima using the atomic bomb. The Allies could then focus on defeating Adolf Hitler. Today we are joined by Allied Powers General Harry Schmidt. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm pleased to be here.
So, we know you played an important role in the Battle of Iwo Jima, but we also know that you had a lot of help, correct?
Yes. In fact, I had help from Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, General Holland M. Smith, and General Graves B. Erskine in this assault.
So, this battle aside, what was life like for you before the war?
Well, before the war, I was born in Nebraska and went to college there, was raised there. And then I decided to go into the military and was a second lieutenant for the 2nd Nebraska Infantry.
So after your time with the 2nd Nebraska Infantry, where did you go from there?
Well, I decided to resign from the infantry and join the Marine Corps because I thought that they were better suited for my needs and my ability to command.
So we know you're originally a brigadier general, but what happened after that during the war?
During the war, I was very lucky and very blessed, and I was allowed to be promoted to Major General.
So you had a large role in the Battle of Iwo Jima. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, during the battle itself, I led the 5th Amphibious Corps, and we had one of the main assaults on the island. And with the help of all of the other generals and admirals that I had previously listed, we were able to secure the victory, and it was one of my biggest achievements.
Do you have any other notable achievements during this war?
Well, I seized Roy Namur during the Battle of Kwai Lin, and I was promoted lieutenant general after the Battle of Iwo Jima.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Today we are also lucky to be joined by Axis Powers General Tadamichi Kurobayashi.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So, I know that prior to the war, you did spend some time in America. Is this true?
Yes, I was a scholar and I attended Harvard for a bit, and I got into poetry. However, I returned to Imperial Japan, where I joined the army after I was finished with school.
Did you have any notable achievements before the war?
Yes, I became a lieutenant general in 1943.
And speaking of the war, what were your thoughts going in?
Well, to be honest, I did not believe that Japan would win the war. And I believe the war should be ended by a negotiation and just a peace treaty.
So getting into specifics, what was your role during the Battle of Iwo Jima?
So what I did, I was the leader of the Japanese forces in the Battle of Iwo Jima.
I'm joined today by these two lovely historians. How are you today, gentlemen?
Good, yeah.
So, on the topic of Iwo Jima, my first question is, what exactly were the battle plans of the opposing sides?
I think I'll let my man Elias here.
Yeah, man. So, like the United States, you know, their whole goal was like get on the beach and get up and they wanted to go and get the airfields. You know what I'm saying? They had to like get in there. They captured one of the mountains, and that's one of the famous pictures. And their whole goal was to just get the island, take the island as fast as they could, and not lose as many people as they did. But yeah, that was their goal. And then the Japanese, on the other hand, were trying to like fortify the island, and they had like bunkers and trenches and underground tunnels and stuff like that. They had mines set up all over, and their whole goal was to just stop the American invasion. And you know, they just went out there, they did some bonsai attacks, so they threw up some flares in the sky, and then they would just use their bayonets and go and attack the Americans. But you know, in the end, they didn't win, so all that matters is America is raw, you know, USA, America, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's to answer your question, yeah.
Okay, what was at stake for this battle? What were they fighting for, fighting against? What was their motive?
This is my boy Kenji right here, yeah.
Thank you, Elias. So I would say that the Americans really had a struggle to really fight against the Japanese and beat them, because what they were fighting for was the airfield and the like main base where all the Japanese had their planes, and it was just off the side of mainland Japan. So once they had that territory of Iwo Jima, they would have a huge advantage over Japan as a whole, because that airfield was what they needed to like have a base where they could meet up and just gain control over the land and really set up the final blow, which was the atomic bomb, which they dropped eventually on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, and that eventually led to the end of the war. Major key.
So, among those results, what were some other results of this battle?
There was a lot of losses of like casualties on both sides, but I think as a whole, like overall, I think Japan took the L.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
No problem, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, brother.